meeting of the Board of Supervisors back to order. It is just 2 p.m. We're in the community center at the Sierra Room, so we'll call the meeting of the Board of Supervisors back to order. We've done item 18 already at 1, and so now we're on item 19, the library. This is 19A. This is to approve and accept a $1,128,570 grant given by the Hoppin May Adams Foundation. Who's doing this one? Sina?
I need to disclose.
Oh, we need disclosures first. I'm sorry. I got 2 disclosures.
NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose a conflict of interest and abstain from participating when I have a disqualifying conflict. These next 2 items concern the Hoppin May Adams Foundation. I'm currently under contract for the Hoppin May Adams Foundation to do design work on 308 North Curry Building. Therefore, because I have a substantial and continuing business relationship with the Hoppin May Adams Foundation, a reasonable person in my position would be materially affected, and therefore I will not participate and will abstain from voting on this matter.
All right.
Thanks.
Brad.
NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose a conflict of interest and abstain from participating when I have a disqualifying conflict. Where a substantial and continuing business relationship exists, there is a disqualifying conflict. In my private capacity, I am a partner in the real estate brokerage firm NAI Alliance Carson City. Bruce Robertson, a broker in my firm, has a listing agreement with one or more of the entities that are involved in this transaction. Therefore, because a business relationship exists between Bruce and the entities involved, and because of the effect my vote may have on that relationship, a reasonable person in my position would be conflicted, so I'll be abstaining from participating on this matter.
Okay. Any other abstentions or any other disclosures? Excuse me. I don't see any. All right. There are 3 of us.
Okay, so I'm going to just take you through what the vision is for the library and the Special Library Services Program for Economic Development in Carson City, and what that funding essentially would go to do in Carson City. So by the numbers, this is what business incubation and co-working spaces have done nationally, so this is not specifically to the hub, but I did want to point out to you that really only about 44% of small businesses succeed, but businesses that are incubated succeed at a rate of about 87% over those 5 years. Incubation client tenure ranges anywhere from 18 months to 3 years. A great number of them are nonprofit, and they're in mixed-use spaces, and there's also been an increase in remote workers since 2005, and that kind of goes to the co-working space in the hub. And communities without borders equal spontaneous collaborations that spawn business, and that's really what I personally have seen in the hub space.
And Borders is BORDES or?
It's a play on that. So,
Okay, good
Do you want
place. All right.
questions by the slide or at the end?
Let's do them now.
yeah, that's fine.
Just so I can clarify, the 5-year business survival, but 94% of them are nonprofits of those that
Not of the business survival. That's just of businesses that are incubated. 94% of those are not for profits.
Okay.
You mean they start out that way and then become for-profit, or you mean they're non-profit?
Okay, so businesses that are incubated, so that are taken through the process of creating their business, the education piece, being provided space for their business. Nationally, 94% of those are nonprofits. Does that make, okay. So at the Adams Hub in 2017, and this is taken from their 2017 year in review, the current services that they offer are the incubation, co-working, and so really that's kind of 1/3 of what they're offering. They offer the NUI network, the Young African and that's a new entrepreneur network. Young African Leaders Institute, Small Business Association, Business Counseling, Entrepreneurs Assembly, Business Coaching, Lunchbox Learning, and Pre-Accelerator Workshops. And in those two items, you'll see 1/3 of that is essentially trying to create a culture of entrepreneurship in Carson City, and then business retention and workforce development, which is not currently a large focus of the hub, but that is what we are looking to bring into the space. So pre-accelerator workshops are workshops in which a business may have applied for business incubation, but they have not shown that they are quite ready to essentially receive the care and support that an incubator would need. They would be able to go through a series of workshops where they would then be able to go forward and potentially become that incubated business. And so it would be educational coursework. So for the statistics, currently they're at nearly 100% occupancy. They have 20 member companies. 8 of those member companies were new in 2017. They have 6 regular partners to help grow business. Currently, the Carson City Library is one of those. We provide Research Ninja services over in the space for business, for marketing research and business plan and just different educational pieces. They have 34 mentors, and they've reached over 600 students with the new Entrepreneur Network group, and that they go to the high school and to the middle schools to offer that curriculum and education.
Who are the other 5?
I'll go ahead and bring that up,
Okay.
and then show you. I'd have to pull up the report. So case studies, I just picked 2 case studies to kind of show you. One of the clients that has incubated is Mapwater, and they are in that space and have been in that space for over 3 years at this point, or around 3 years, I guess, at this point. And that's DIR researcher and Adams Hub startup founder, Justin Huntington. And they've received grants from Google, NASA, and Bechtel. And they've done a build out of a climate engine. And they have private and public sector applications for their item. We then have Triforce, who is a newly acquired company here in 2018, and they've developed an innovative new solution to stretching carpet. They do have a utility patent, and they did essentially their background research for their patent, as well as their product at the Carson City Library. And
Okay, so Triforce, it indicates there that the research was done at the library. So can you tell me could that service have occurred at the library without the Adams Hub?
So the background research that he did in physics and stuff to create his product, he was a self-starter and an engaged individual. So I would say in his case, yes. But they did come to the Adams Hub to essentially take the next step in their business and incubate their business and take it to market. And I'm going to show you this video. Possibly.
Are you on the employees?
I don't know. I didn't sign on. I feel, yeah, we're Carson City.
Yeah. Because otherwise, it's super molasses sometimes.
I know.
That's okay. We have time. It's good. The longer we go, the less likely. See?
I think this computer does not have speakers.
Christina, you probably know more about computers than I do, so if you say it doesn't have speakers, then I'm good with that.
I mentioned to the gentleman that I was working with, there has to be something better than this. And he indicated that if there was, somebody would be making it. This was the most challenging device, and I found the solution very simple. The books that I read at the Carson City Library, where I did all my research, led me to the idea very quickly. Part of the fun is the actual research and progressing towards the discovery. If I never had a library card, none of this would have happened.
Before it starts playing something again. Okay, so that is an example of really a partnership with the library and the hub that's worked out, where he used the library, transitioned into the hub. We actually caught his story with our hashtag Share Your Story campaign, being nominated as a finalist for the National Medal. Okay, and then real quickly to go back and answer your question, John, about the partners. We have Entrepreneurs Assembly, which is a now global Nevada-born nonprofit out of the Adams Hub, and they meet on the second Wednesday evening of every month, and they meet in the studio at Adams Hub. But there's a group in Reno, Las Vegas, and globally. The Northern Nevada Small Business Development Center, the library, the Small Business Administration, and the Nevada Arts Council, and the Carson City Visitors Bureau. Okay, so in partnerships, the Carson City Library and the Board of Supervisors, we have separate strategic plans, but really we have kind of the same mission to support our community. The library's strategic goals, this type of project fits into all of those, but specifically in creating opportunity for our community. And I just want to kind of tell you a little bit about how that specifically fits. So one of the ways that we look at success in creating opportunity in our community is identifying that we're a central player in economic development in our community. We've worked on this before. We have our Manufacturing Technician 1 certification program in partnership with Western Nevada College. We've done workforce development, and we've done a little bit with business retention, and we see that as a success moving forward. We also want to see businesses grow as unemployment lowers in our community, and we feel that our involvement in the hub can help do that. And then we want to see a high percentage of community student graduates that are career and college ready. Again, a piece of that workforce development aspect. We also want to provide competitive intelligence capacity and analysis with white glove research help, resulting in more profitable and diverse businesses within our community. And we've really done that through our partnership with the Hub in providing that Research Ninja, as they call it, services for the last almost 3 years at this point. So we also feel that it fits within the city's strategic goals of economic development to create a vibrant and diverse and dynamic economy and into quality of life, because economic development in a community directly impacts that quality of life. So overview of operations. What we're looking at here is having a business development manager, and we do have the job description, and that's coming up next, if you will, who would oversee the interns that are in that space. Currently, there are high school interns as well as college PAC interns, and those PAC internships are paid internships through UNR that the Hub just then initiates in their space. The entrepreneur in residence, which would be a part-time contracted employee. The new e-network manager, who would again be a part-time contracted employee. And then currently we have a business coach who does not receive payment but receives office space for their services, and then the business accelerator mentor who receives office space for his services. And he provides the pre-accelerator workshops, the actual business accelerator workshops into the incubation piece, and is a mentor for the appropriate businesses that are in the Hub to his specialties. So the different programs that we see continuing and evaluating their success, and this is an ongoing evaluation of their success, not year after year, and oh, it didn't work. It's are we having success week after week if it's a weekly program, or month after month if it's a monthly program, and really evaluating, does it stay or does it go? And if it goes, it's gone, and we will move on and either pick a new program to bring in and see if that's successful, or continue with our successful programs. So this is the same list that you had seen before, but I did want to add on here that we are looking at adding Pitch Fest, and that's for companies to come and be able to pitch to angel investors and potentially get investments in their businesses, as well as hackathons to bring people together to solve community problems. I think that it's a really good opportunity for Carson City to kind of put some resources in the sense of the building at the Adams Hub and bring people in from all over our region to help solve some of those problems. I participated one at the Innovation Center 2 weeks ago, and we came out of it with a functioning app for a local nonprofit. And so I think that's a really good opportunity. And then in continuing that co-working and possibly some of that business incubation, depending on what the community sees as it's what they want out of the Hub and what this community needs out of that Hub space. So this is the chart. What you see in pink are actual city employees, full-time, part-time. To bring on high school interns, if they are under 18, we cannot bring them on Marathon. We do have to bring them on the city. And so that is why they're part-time city employees. And then the green is the professional service contracted employees that are actually paid and not for in-kind service.
So for the ones that are in kind, do we see having to do contracts to validate the
Absolutely.
in kind? Because again, there are IRS rules on given things. Okay.
Absolutely.
So we'll see those as contracts, but okay. Thank you.
Well, depending on the dollar amount, it may or may not come to the board, but they will be contracts, to answer the question. Yes.
Okay, so what you'll see here is the breakout of the proposed budget. This is the proposed revenue for the remainder of this year as well as in 2019. So we foresee being able to collect in rent leases about $6,000. And then the annual contribution of $200,000 specifically from the Hop and May Adams Foundation. And then there currently is a, some of it is spent, but funding for the new entrepreneur network from the Carson City School District. And that's where that other $5,000 is coming from. And then incubator memberships, currently there are a few coworkers that do intend to stay, and that's just their kind of daily rate of when they are coming and going. And then in 2019, you'll see that we've estimated rents at $50,000, and I felt safe to estimate it at that, as that is what we received from the Hop and May Adams Foundation of what had been collected in 2017, approximately. And then we have our annual contributions of $200,000 from the Hop and May Adams Foundation, and then incubator memberships, they're at $12,000. Again, what has been given to us as the potential for, or what was received last year, so the calendar year 2017.
Okay. I'm not sure I can compute that. So
Okay.
you're saying $60 for the rest of FY18 is for May and June, but I can get $12,000? Is it the way they pay? Do
Yes.
you pay for an annual? Okay. I was
Yeah.
like, what? Okay. It's not an equal amount per month.
Right now, there's a few different options. We will look at reevaluating those options to make it more manageable, but that is currently what we're looking at. Okay, so here is the, like my little note on there. I left that on there. Hey, I checked them though. So the one thing that was noted that is not on here, and thank you, Brad, for bringing that up, is the trash service. And the trash service is right about $1,000. That's a little bit of a high estimate, and that would come out of the operating. I didn't touch it. The operating supply line item, and so that would be reduced to $17,000, and then the waste management line would be $1,000 for the year. So this is the proposed budget. So we have in here the remainder of this fiscal year and the tentative for 2019 for the business development manager position, along with salary. We then have professional services in here. That is going to be the entrepreneur in residence and the new entrepreneur network. We then have training in here as well. And some different costs, as well as office and operating supplies. Our operating supplies line item, we currently, as we are looking at the operations of the business incubating and co-working space in the hub, will continue to offer the perks of that space, but we will be looking at those leases and rents to ensure that they are cost recovery at the least, and not losing funding by providing those perks to be in that space. Okay, so what we're looking at in year one is to really make, and this is in the first couple months, but to establish the need for the community, including the review of business retention, entrepreneur development, and business incubation needs. So we want to make sure that this space is functioning for the community in which it's in. And we want to make sure that if we are incubating businesses, we're incubating the businesses that the community feels need to be incubated in our community, and not necessarily spending too much time and effort and funding to try to bring businesses in that might not actually want to relocate or try to relocate into Carson City. We also want to develop strategic goals and metrics that are very specific and that really show us if we are succeeding in our endeavor or not. And that, again, reported quarterly to the board and monthly in written reports. So For the first year, we want to establish and execute policy to recover at least 25% cost recovery of our services. And then in year 2, it would be 50%. In year 3, it would be 75%. So theoretically, if there were a year 4, that it would be a at least cost recovery effort. But obviously, we would be looking at this really on a quarterly basis on if it's succeeding, and if it's succeeding, great, and we want to do well for our community. And then at the end of that 3-year contract, reevaluating where we are and if that is something that the Hop and May Adams Foundation as well as the city want to continue, or what they want to do at that point in time.
How do you determine what you said earlier about whether business, not wasting time on businesses that are going to come here and then leave, is the way I interpreted what you said.
Well, I mean,
how do you figure that out, what they might do after they get up and running?
well, I mean, there's ways that we can really evaluate and see if a company is going to want to stay based on kind of who that company is. And but really where I was trying to go with that was, we don't want to spend a lot of time on a company that's not even going to come here. That might just be saying, hey, yeah, that looks great, and then we spend all that time and they relocate to Reno.
That's what I'm asking. How do you determine that?
You spend time with, I mean, you spend time with them. We develop a plan, we develop a questionnaire and application process so that they aren't coming in to essentially get the charity of the business incubator to evaluate that.
Well, maybe to dive in a little deeper on that, would not the process of the incubator itself help them determine where the best market is for that business? And it may or may not show it to be Carson City.
Absolutely.
But, so I guess I'm a little bit confused in that too. Are you saying we're not going to help a resident of Carson City that wants to get their business started, and it may, when you get all done with the paperwork, the analysis, the stuff, to say, hey, you really need, pretend, maybe it's, you know what, the warehouse space is appropriate in Mound House, or so I guess I need to understand that. Certainly our goal, you're saying, is to help Carson City located businesses first, but
that businesses that want to relocate to Carson City. So right now there are businesses in the hub that have relocated from other states into Carson City. Ludella is the specific one that I can pinpoint at this moment. So they came and they relocated here in Carson City, and they're incubating in the hub here. But what we don't want to spend is a bunch of time on that front end and not have that company then come to Carson City. I mean, there's no guarantee that they're, like, yeah, we're going to come to Carson, and then not, they could make that decision. But we do want to ensure that we're spending the best and most efficient use of our time, so that we are helping Carson City's economy. Regionally too, helping the economy in Mound House does help the economy here in Carson City, but we want to make sure that we're spending that time efficiently.
I'd like to address that too, if I could, Commissioner Bagwell. The Hop and May Adams Foundation's focus is really the community of Carson City. However, in our studies and in our perspective, as we've really analyzed it, if we help a business and they locate in Reno, or if they locate even in Sacramento or wherever they locate, we're actually creating jobs. We're helping the macro environment. So there's no constraint on us that the company that gets incubated in Carson City has to stay in Carson City. We're willing to help any business, any entrepreneur who wants to, who has an idea that gets vetted and they get trained and we think they're going to be successful. We aren't holding them that they have to stay in Carson City necessarily. We think that Carson City offers a lot, and we think once here, it'd be hard to get them out, yes.
Okay. So then the next piece would be to leverage the Hop and May Adams Foundation funding to apply for federal and state grants, because we do think that we can leverage either the operating expenses as in-kind grant match, or if there are unallocated funds essentially in one of the budget years. This first year, it doesn't look like we'll have that, but then we would be able to leverage that for grant funding, but to keep it within the special revenue fund of the business incubation and not in the other areas. But I do think that we can leverage that for specifically workforce development and business retention funding that is available, especially on the state level. So then the structure, what we're looking at here is the Library Board of Trustees would approve policies and would have oversight. We'd have monthly written reports, and they would be the ones agreeing to the donation agreement. We do have a special meeting this evening pending how the Board of Supervisors agrees on this. And then the Board of Supervisors would have grant approval, written reports monthly, quarterly presentations and reports, and I would be bringing forward a policy and procedures document with a sample lease and other documents related to that to the Board of Supervisors as well. And any expenditures over $50,000 would also have to come to the Board of Supervisors, as per city policy. Any questions?
Questions of the board?
So this may be more to the next item, but it obviously is integrally intertwined with this, and that is, so this would be your employee, but a city employee, but the money comes from elsewhere, right?
Correct. I am a city employee as well, and all of the library employees that are full-time city employees are city employees, but that would be reporting to me.
And under that scenario, you report to our city manager, correct?
No, I report to the Library Board of Trustees.
That's what I thought. That's what I was heading for. You report to the library board, so you'd be reporting to both of us in a sense, through the
In a sense, I mean, the Board of Supervisors does appoint the library board, and technically the library board reports to the supervisors. They just do it through me.
Thank you.
So maybe my question is, I'll just say it as, why should we even do this? So the Hop and May Adams has been operating the hub. Why do you not want to operate it anymore? And then why should the city do it? I mean, underlying, that's the true issue here, right? Why should government do this?
That's a philosophical question, but I'll do my best to answer that. I'm a businessman through and through. I'm a turnaround practitioner. I've been in several hundred businesses as a consultant. I've turned around 54. I founded 15. So I guess I believe in private enterprise. I also believe there's a place for public domain. I believe if private businesses all go do their own thing and they aren't involved in community, we'd have chaos. I believe I've seen a lot of power in public-private partnerships. I believe that when I go into a business, the smaller the business, the more likely they are to fail because they don't know what they don't know. I don't know how else to say it. The larger the business, they have a CEO, they have a COO, they have a CFO. They have C's with every alphabet behind it. so there's expertise there within the in the entity that helps them succeed. The smaller the business, the more someone is trying to do something that they don't really know, they're not an expert in. We originally partnered kind of in the brick. And what I could see there is this is my observation. My observation was there's a lot of strength and a lot of data, a lot of information in the library that isn't tapped by businesses. No business really thinks to go there. When I go do a turnaround, they haven't done a market study. They haven't done a study on their competitors. They haven't done a study on where technology is going that impacts their industry. They aren't aligned with their industry. Most of them aren't even keeping in touch with where their industry is going and the mega trends that are happening. So I'm a believer in the partnership between the library and business. I decided to go over to, I could see that there was a disconnect there at the brick and it wasn't quite working, and I didn't know how to solve it, really. So at the time the Stewart Title Building was vacant, I also believed that I needed to create a small critical mass for downtown. It's my belief that as a downtown goes, so goes the community. So I bought the foundation bought the Stewart Title Building. We remodeled it. We thought it would work well as an incubator. Most people put incubators way out in the boonies where they don't work. We thought they needed to really be downtown, part of the community. We bought the brewery thinking that needed to be a viable business in downtown, but the brewery, the coffee shop went in really well with the incubator. Meeting rooms, meeting space, people creating the synergy of people interaction. I won't point fingers at anybody, but somebody up there asked me to also tackle the Citibank building, and I'm struggling with forgiveness, but my thought is I'm creating a core there. I'm kind of creating a core that is starting to put people downtown, and so the incubator really has a lot of people downtown. Adams 308 will have a lot of people downtown. There's a place to meet downtown, and it's my hope that that will grow. And I think bringing the library now in with having had that time to test and try, I had some really talented professionals help me think through. We funded testing a lot of things. And I think we're down to this is what works, this isn't what works. We've created a brand name for the Adams Hub that I think is a respectable name. And I want to now bring the elements of the city, the library into it. We haven't focused on, we took the hard road, which I think is incubation is probably one of the harder roads to take. But I think we've got it where it's working. We'd like to see business retention, or I don't like the term business retention, taking and helping existing businesses grow. How can we do that? And I really think the partnership with the library, taking information, helping people think through what is a good marketplace, where is their industry going, where is the macro economy going, what's the competitive landscape, what are opportunities out there, what government contracts are out there for the local companies. So I think there's a lot of power that this public-private partnership can do. That's my thoughts.
Okay. So, this is about education as well, and it's the library's mission to educate the community. And it's not just about bringing companies in, but creating the culture of entrepreneurship here in Carson and creating that opportunity for our community. So by educating the citizens of the community, we do that now with computers. We do beginning computers. We have Adobe Illustrator. We're offering certifications in soldering. We're offering certifications in laser cutting. And and sewing and textile design as well. But this program will help educate the community in the business development piece, which is something that we don't currently have at the library.
So then, one of your goals or objectives was that you would bring us back quarterly a report. So what types of benchmarks makes an activity or a program successful? So is it successful if that particular program component pays for itself? Or is it, because you could be successful and you receive no money, but everybody enjoys the benefit. So what are you trying to tell us you're going to know whether you're going to jettison off one of the programs? We got into XYZ and so talk to me about that.
So I think that's going to depend on each of the programs individually, and we have to look at what those metrics are. They're not currently developed, and so that is something that will be the first thing that we do, is ensure that we have a sustainability in mind when we're creating those metrics. So again, it might not pay for itself the first few times, but if it's costing us, if it's in the red, that's when we're going to really look at reevaluating if that's a successful venture or not.
And if I may add, being a businessman, what you don't measure, you can't manage.
I had a constituent whom I know well and respect call me yesterday after reading as much as he could get his hands on about this, and his concern was that he didn't see a plan. You're outlining a plan, but it's a little fuzzy for me too. I know it's a road not taken so far, so it's hard to plan, down to the crossing of the T's and the dotting of the I's. But I took his point, and my concern is we're going to take this over pretty quickly. Is there some kind of greater plan that I haven't seen here? I would assume there's not.
I am very transparent in everything I share with you guys, and so I will say part of this is this has happened relatively quickly. I wouldn't say extremely quickly, but there is a plan to develop a plan, and I know that sounds horrible, but really what this is, so the library has, in 2019, we'll be ending our current strategic plan. But this is that fuzzy plan, as you were talking about, of what it looks like.
Let's not take my modifier. It's just I just reached for it.
But this is the structure of what that's going to look like, and the intent is within the first couple of months that we have a much more well ironed out plan, and again, you would see that in that quarterly report, that we would actually be moving forward with being able to execute on metrics and the plan that we've created.
If I could answer, so this was Adams Hub was really a brainstorm of mine when I read an article in Wall Street in January of 2012 that Carson City basically was the worst city economy in America. And
well, Steve, I don't know that I'd take anything out of those public prints as gospel.
I understand, but
Fake news. Fake news.
But it made me stop and pause and say, how can we, the foundation, help the community? So I guess my point is, I started it with an idea. I hired a professional out of Pennsylvania to kind of help flush it. I'm a certified incubator manager. I went through thinking through all the processes. I understood in economic development that incubation was the hardest one, but it also fit my strategy of the downtown life. And I'm not going anywhere. So the foundation is staying involved. We understand that the plan going forward hasn't been fully focused. I think that's going to take a lot of interaction, and we'll be totally transparent with you.
Any other questions of,
Okay, I do.
go?
So, I talked to our library director the other day, and one of my concerns is the workload for the library director. You know, we already have, I know what you're going to say, little funding and lots of work. And I'm concerned in the overall ability for those goal sets to be met, and that this doesn't, I don't want to say become a distraction, but it rises higher and then we start suffering in some other areas. And so she's assured me that she is superwoman and can work 70 to 80 hours a week, but I still want to put something on the record. I think a concern for me, anytime that government gets into an adventure, a new venture, it's very intensive workload, and especially if we want it to be successful, right? So she's going to have to work really hard with whomever she hires in the position to really flesh all this out. And so I really, on the record, want to know how, in the library side of the issues, she really believes this can be successful.
Supervisor Bagwell, I've asked Amanda Long, she's one of the trustees. She oversees SENA, knows exactly what she's capable of, so she's going to say a few words about what she can do.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to talk, about SENA, because I've been on the library board for almost a year now, and just in this short period of time that I've been on the board, I'm absolutely impressed by SENA and what she's taken on, and just the turn in the library that she, has created over the last, few years that, I've really been watching. And so, her and I have talked about this, and I definitely think this is a project that, SENA's capable of taking on, and if anybody was able to do it, I would for sure say she's got that ability, and I have confidence, the highest confidence, that she's, it is a big job, it's a big task, I do get it. I've been around the Adams Hub for a while, I've been involved with some of the things going on there as well, and so I know, a little bit more about that than, just the, involved in it. So, I feel like she would have a really good presence, and I think she'd do a really good job at it. She's shown that to us on the, library board.
I'd like to make a comment too, if I could. There was one time I was a CFO of 12 different companies, all in turnaround, all in desperate turnaround. And so I know what overloaded looks like. And the key to it is just really good people underneath you. And so I'm going to be really interested in working with Valerie. I'm going to be keeping my eye and making sure that Sarah doesn't burn out. And I'm going to stay involved, and I'll be down every other week. So I'm going to be involved as well.
Well, I think SENA has a really good team under her as well. So that's, that she builds a good team, and I think that she's done a good job with her team too.
I'm not as concerned about SENA as I am about the person who comes in to actually be there day in and day out as the person who would take over. So I know that's, again, is the next, but I can't vote on this one until I know more about the next item.
For the record, Valerie Quape. I was mentioned earlier as potential candidate for this position. The little bit that I've had a chance to work with SENA, we seem to work really well together, and I'm really excited to bring a skill set to this position that has where I have an opportunity to take what I've learned from government and kind of push that further into the private sector and see how we can really create a positive collaborative between the two.
Hang on a minute, Valerie.
I think we ought to open up the next agenda item because this relates more to that.
Anybody have any problem with opening up this to the next agenda item, so the 19B, that's the issue?
We have to do the disclosures.
Well, I'll just include that, if it's okay, if I can do this, I'll just put on the record that Supervisor Abel and Supervisor Bunkowski made a disclosure on item 19 alpha. We'll bring that disclosure in its full entirety to 19B. I mean, unless you guys want to remake your disclosures, but I think I can do that. Can I? with the
That's
record?
okay, yes.
All right.
Yeah,
So if we
I'm sorry to
could-
take things out of order, but I can't make a decision.
Yeah,
on
no,
the
no,
first.
it's totally logical. And so if you don't mind, if we're gonna talk about Valerie, I'd like to intro her. I know the board knows her, but she left for the sake of the folks who are either here in the room or watching on TV. Valerie left about 2 years ago. She's been pursuing an MPH, a Master's in Public Health, up at UNR. She's going to finish very shortly. When Valerie took off 2 years ago, I told her, I'm going to stay in touch with you. And if anything comes up that I think is suited to your skill set, which is considerable, I'm going to contact you. So I've kind of kept Valerie in mind. We've talked a lot here about team building, and I've placed a premium on identifying bright young people especially and putting them in key areas of responsibility to be the public face of the city. This particular position is one that's going to operate without a lot of guardrails. John, I think you brought up a very good question that a constituent had: where's the detailed plan? And I think getting back to Valerie and her skill set, if you remember, she led the accreditation effort for the Department of HHS here. It is still the only department, the only health department in the state that's accredited. Valerie developed the plan. She coordinated that effort with the regulators. She conducted the community outreach. If you look up on the slide here for year number 1, just about every bullet is firmly in her wheelhouse as to not only what she has demonstrated a high degree of competence, but also one that I think she's going to do exceptionally well in this position. So I think Valerie's demonstrated those qualities over the years that are going to fit right into her new position. Coming from a master's program, working at the university has an innovation center. Valerie has already been in contact with a lot of the same people who run in the same circles who she's going to come in contact with if these 2 items get approved, who she will run into contact with. So I think she'd be a great, not only public face for the city, I think Valerie's going to go far. Hopefully it's going to be here within city government, and I think she'll be the right person to kind of take this off the ground. So Valerie, glad to see you again.
Thank you so much, Mr. Morano, for that great introduction. So again, for the record, Valerie Qualpay.
Just for the brief moment to say, I'm probably the ignorant one up here because I was not on this board at the time Valerie left. So that's why I'm asking these questions. I probably was out making a fool out of myself running for this office, but I do recall her in the fact that I was covering this board for the Nevada appeal, but I didn't get to know her at that time. So thank you. Go right ahead.
Okay, so
I don't think you're the ignorant one up here. I'll take that credit.
Okay. Okay, so getting back to kind of why I would be a good fit for this particular role, my passion is really in governmental innovation, and no, that's not an oxymoron per se. But I really want to see governmental organizations evolve to meet the needs of 21st century communities. And I feel very deeply that Carson City is poised to be an innovation leader in the state of Nevada. And with my current skill set and with the people that I have been able to network with, this is a really fantastic opportunity to see some really fantastic things happen in Carson. As far as relevant skills are considered, day one administration, as Mr. Morano mentioned, is well within my scope of work. I have grant management and budgeting skills and grant writing skills as well. I was able to capture a national level, very competitive national level grant for HHS a few years ago as we were applying for accreditation and preparing for that. strategic planning, program planning, and more importantly, program evaluation are strengths of mine in areas where I have a fair amount of expertise. And in program evaluation, we're looking at not just are we implementing something as planned, but are we implementing evidence-based practices? So what works for other organizations, and have we appropriately tailored that for the needs here? And then are we doing the right things? So are the programs actually looking at the outcomes that we're wanting to and affecting those? And that's, again, something that we're going to have to review on a very regular basis. It may be annually, it may be at shorter intervals than that, it may be very short intervals, but we're going to have to go ahead and put together a plan to do so. The thing is we also need to do an internal audit within the Adams Hub itself and figure out how long a piece of string is and what's going on with the processes. We need to document the processes. We need to look for areas where we can find inefficiencies and streamline. And then we need to look at the needs of not only the current members, but also do an assessment of the community as a whole and see where we can help our current members fill in those spaces. And then as we start our recruitment for more members of the Adams Hub, look to prioritize those members that will start to fill community gaps.
So do you anticipate that you're able potentially, let's say, to fill a gap that some of the certificate programs that you have now, is it because it's a gap that it's too small maybe for the community college to do it, but we might be able to employ 10 people per year, so they're not going to do a certificate program at the community college level, but maybe the Adams Hub or the library through that? So is that a piece of a gap that you're like going to interview the companies and say, okay, we need whatever, lathe workers, whatever it is,
we could
more
definitely
carpet layers in town or something? Are you seeing that you're saying you want to go to the existing businesses in Carson City? Because that actually makes a little more sense to me than the incubating one, because that's much more regional, global, versus what's my gap for the existing businesses in Carson City that we can make them more healthy, create the jobs in the community, and obviously you're going to get some byproduct that Steve mentioned earlier, but are you seeing the focus more going that way, or you don't know until you get out there and find out?
I think the most appropriate thing is to really get into the organization and figure out what's going on at that point. I mean, I'm sure that Mr. Neighbors has some input on that, but, and I've spoken at great length with Sina, and the workforce development piece is also hugely important and will be of huge benefit to the community, but I think we need to, before we make any commitments on how we're going to balance that, really look at what the needs are.
If I could make a comment. So back in my youth, in the covered wagon days, I went onto a Air Force base, and we were doing some work on at a top secret clearance. We were doing some work on the Air Force base, and I watched these military people walk by, and they had all these different little square colored badges and whatever on their stuff, and I noticed that everyone in the Air Force at that time knew each ranking and rating of each person. So in the construction industry, there isn't really a skill. There doesn't have, I'm just going to take the construction industry as an example. It doesn't really have a ladder to how you go to the next step. And so I started a hat program, just a baseball hat, and I made 12 different levels of baseball hat. And so everybody in the company started with a blank red hat. And then I thought, what is, to be able to earn the black bill on the red hat, what are the 8 key things I wish every employee knew to become a certified laborer? And so I made that list. And then what's the next 8 things to put the little black dot on the red hat? And I created this ladder, and I had a mass, the entire company wanted to get rid of their red hat, because it was required you had to wear a hat, and get the black bill. And it created a problem for the company, because we had to figure out how to manage that. But we created certification programs for the certified labor, and then for a journeyman labor, and then for a foreman, and then just the ladder. People are really willing to step through the ladder if they know it. I'll give you an example today. Today we dealt with, there wasn't a certification program that was timely for someone to be able to put scaffolding up at Adams 308. They could only go to 2 levels, and to go to the 4 levels we need, that's been holding up stucco, we found today. There's no certification program for that isn't timely and easily available. And so just in the construction industry, I know tons of certification programs to help train laborers to become, take pride in their work and take them to the next stage. And that's just in construction alone. So every industry has that problem. And that's really the beginning of the talk with Nick on doing this public-private partnership on the Adams Hub, was how can we go out to existing businesses and help their workforce development? How can we go out and do business, what they call business retention, but I say, how can we go leverage the existing businesses and help them with opportunities and get them in touch with their industry and and help their workforce get better? So that's kind of my vision for Adams Hub and the city partnership, the library partnership.
And then we have some workforce grant dollars that are in the health and human services. What do we see as a city as an opportunity to coordinate those, marry those up, and make sure we're maximizing those grant dollars to actually start getting the unemployed, the underemployed into the right programs? Do we see an opportunity there for more improvement in the processes?
I do think we do. I'll let Valerie weigh on it and a little bit more on that. But I think partnerships, I mean, we've worked with Health and Human Services on other items. I think that's necessary to create efficiencies, not just within the library and within this special library program, but also citywide.
If we were to go into kind of the business of creating those stepladder education programs, as Mr. Neighbors discussed, I think that would be incredibly wise, particularly for those for community members who are ready to pursue employment. And so we'd work closely with the workforce development people at HHS about that.
I would think it would really help the city hit on all cylinders the goal sets that we put in those grants, which would then potentially give us the synergy to get more grants, because we'll have success. We can say we did it, and then we want to build more on it. So that's a component piece in this project that I really like. And then I just want to clarify on the dollars, because I've had a lot of people emailing me about the city's involvement in this project, and so I want to be very clear that there are no taxpayer dollars in this project. It is all a donation from the foundation, and that if it'll be up to the foundation to determine at the end of the 3 years whether or not he wants to continue to participate with the city, because hopefully we're hitting on all cylinders and reaching the goals that Mr. Neighbors sees for the project also, because you have a foundation that has to do charitable giving. Is that correct? Because I have people going, why does Mr. Neighbors want to do this? And I said, I think he has some of his own goals or requirements to do.
So I think together there's a synergy, and I felt like I had to go offline with the brick, go build the base nut of the facility, and do what I did. And I thought I could do it in 2 years, but I went ahead and extended it 4 years. So Adams Hub has been in existence in 4 years. I really think it's time to now go to the next level. And that's really what I do as a consultant. I take businesses to the next level. And it's my perspective, we're ready for the next level if the city wants to do that. It also serves my purpose to get city input. The foundation isn't here just to throw money about what it what it thinks is right willy-nilly. We feel like we need to answer to the community as well. And so this is also a measure of, we spent a lot of money on Adams Hub. Is this really something the city wants to continue or not want to continue? And if they do, let's see if we can take it to the next level. And I thought about 1 year, I thought about 2 years, I thought about 3 years. We talked about it, and 5 years, and we decided 3 years is long enough to see that we can work it all out, but not so long that we get slothful about it, you know.
Okay, I did want to add to that and kind of disclose too, and I had talked to you about this, Lori, but there will be time that I spend on the hub, and my salary is paid out of the general fund, so that it's not necessarily in the budget of operating the Adams Hub, but some of my time will be spent on this, as well as some of the time of our support staff on paying bills and managing the accounts of the hub. But that's not unlike any other grant that we apply for and get. I mean, so it wouldn't be any additional, but I do want to disclose that.
Does this have cost allocation to this fund?
We have not done that.
I'm happy to carry over the bookkeeping. We've been doing that for Adams Hub anyway, so you haven't seen a lot of bookkeeping expenses in Adams Hub.
We do have one cost, Supervisor Bagwell, that I am going to fund out of the general fund should you approve this. We're going to connect via our network for security reasons. We're going to connect the hub to our network. That is going to be under $10,000 net. That is the only cost. Oh,
It's budgeted into the budget
Oh, you
for
do have it.
2019.
Okay. I stand corrected.
You can add it, and then we can extend the budget.
I will withdraw my comment. Thank you.
Don't worry, Cena's working 80 hours, so the city's getting its 40 hours of its general fund need. This is Cena's extraordinary superwoman giving us the other hours.
Lori just stepped on my line, so I won't get to say that. We'll just forget that part, and she'll do what she does at the library for the 40, and then the excess will be at the hub. We'll call it that. I still want to get back to, I need to know more about Valerie, and so I would like to ask a few questions. Tell me about your background, your undergraduate work, what you did at the Health and Human Services Department, whether you have any economic development to bring to the table on this, and does it matter if you don't, etc.
All right, thank you. So my undergraduate work was actually in exercise physiology. I completed that in 2006, and from there I decided that I wanted to go back to actually the community college level and teach. So I pursued a Master of Arts in Kinesiology, Exercise Physiology. Unfortunately, I finished that in 2009, and we can all remember what the economy was like at that time, particularly in the context of the community college system. So I ended up moving to Nevada at that time with my family, and I had never considered a job in government before, but I'd always been told that exercise phys and exercise science can be carried over into public health. So I applied at the health department, and even though I didn't at the time have any public health experience, my experience with data collection and analysis and understanding of those aspects helped me get the job at the health department. From there, I worked in flu epidemiology. I also worked part-time with the health department in conjunction with human resources for a few months. And then I came back to the health department under the context of the adolescent health education programs and also accreditation. As I started my master's, Master of Public Health at UNR in summer 2015. I felt that although I had been able to make a lot of gains in the field of public health, there were still some points that I hadn't had contact with, and you only learn what you have contact with for the most part. And so I really wanted to flesh out my skill set, kind of seeing the writing on the wall that teen pregnancy funding is always uncertain, and wanting to have other options and being able to, be employable if I had to leave. So I started the Masters of Public Health program in 2015. I'm graduating in 2 weeks. Through my work there, I've been able to focus on program planning, program evaluation, and organizational development. So although I don't have any economic development experience per se, I just want to get that out in the open, when it comes to the real world aspects of the job duties associated with this position, it's all well within my skill set.
I wouldn't worry about whether you have economic development background or not. I threw that one out there to see what you would say, but the truth of the matter is I've seen a lot of economic developers that I wouldn't hire, so it won't be held against you.
Thank you.
Actually, I'm not sure whether this is under A or B or not, whether it's really under C, but since the revenue and the money is actually discussed in B, so now I'm slightly concerned on the cost allocation methodology, solely because like we created the new fund for the visitors when we took the art director over. And part of the reason we could not charge cost allocation to that is because we have another agreement in which we charge them a direct 1% fee for their administrative costs. So I don't know if it's a technical question for the finance people that how do we waive or not charge administrative costs to this fund when we charge it to all the other funds? I mean, what's our nexus to eliminate that in the revenue, in your plan that you put up for the budget? There, I tied that. There you go.
I also don't believe we charge a cost allocation plan to the library gift fund.
Correct.
Yeah, and we also don't charge any cost allocation to most of our grants. So.
Nor do you call for open space, right?
Yes, you do.
Yeah, we charge a smaller, according to the whatever the federal rules are. So I guess we could say, that we're not going to charge it just based on that it's a donation.
And here's the sole issue. So out of your donation account, we don't have staff. This one will actually have a city staff, and your whole cost allocation plan is an allocation per staff person to the workers' comp fund, to the, right? Don't we have some that are staff-based cost allocation plans in our plan? Okay, right? We charge everywhere there's a staff person.
Well, and I'm thinking we may be able to charge a cost allocation plan. There's a lot of expenses that I think you've built into the operating budget that are things like facilities, janitorial. Don't you have that already plugged in?
Correct.
So
We would only charge the person pieces.
yeah, and so it may be a wash if we just begin to charge those through a cost allocation plan rather than just direct charging.
Right, I'm just looking for, on our finance side, that we do everything
Yeah, to be
consistently
consistent, yes.
through our processes, and I'm more than happy to look
Yeah, I
at
don't believe it would be a very big number.
differential. Okay, thank you. Narrow.
Any other questions of the panel? Anybody? Public comment on this? Anybody want to weigh in? Sina, before we bring us back to the board, tell me what you think your vision is for the future of libraries and the future of the Carson City Library in particular.
We will have paper books. Okay. Okay, so it's one of the things since I've become the library director that I constantly get asked is, will books disappear? Books will not disappear. Publishers will continue to make money, and people will continue to check them out from the library. In Carson City, we've actually seen increases in individuals using the library and using the services at the library, and that's really good to see coming out of the economy in which we were in. And so that looks like economic recovery, and we're seeing, individuals creating businesses based on research they've done at the library. Really what I see the library as, especially here in Carson City, is that community hub. It is for everyone. I know, our tagline is a place for everyone, but it is that space where it's going to be evolving based on community needs. So the library is no longer the shush, you can't talk in this space, which we do have, community members who want it to be that quiet space, and so we've tried to separate the spaces that we currently have. But it's a space for people to explore. It's a space for people to engage with technology, new technology specifically. You know, we're bringing augmented reality and virtual reality into our space, but it's not just a space to consume. And I think that that's the most important piece. It's about education. And so when we do these things, and they might be shiny, they might be great, and we're doing this at the library, and we're nominated at the national level, and we're named a finalist for a really prestigious award, it is also about the creation, about the knowledge behind what people are doing and engaging in. So, you know, who knows how this device works? I'm holding up a smartphone. You know, we want to teach people the tools that they can get good jobs, that they can engage in environments and communities, and not just be a user and consumer, but also be a creator. And, you know, you see that with our makerspace. If this is approved, you'll see that in the hub, and you'll just really have a community that's one for all and all for one in the community, and making this a better place to live in Carson City.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? All right, we ready to take this up then? All right, we'll entertain a motion on 19A. So we want to do that? Since it's three of us.
Leaves me.
I think we can make motions here, and then
Okay.
if we vote one way or the other, we can always, we need 2 out of 3 to do it, so go ahead,
No problem.
make a motion. I'll-
Okay, let's see. Oh, it's such a tiny little thing on here, but I'll do it. I got my glasses on so I can read it, maybe. I move to accept the grant valued at $1,128,570 given by the Hop and May Adams Foundation and Carson Incubator One LLC to the Carson City Library for the purpose of a special library services program for economic development as defined in the late material for 19A donation agreement in Carson City, that it be included in the final budget. They'll have to amend the budget that we did the other day. And that the document we look at the cost allocation to validate.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Might have discussion?
We did.
Oh,
Did we have?
on the motion, just
I thought
discussion.
I just did, but discussion on motions.
I just want to put something on the record why I'm going to support and why I made the motion. So first, I want to say I'm not 100% convinced. I just want to say that on the record, but I think it comes down to the faith that I have in the library and the faith in Mr. Neighbors and in Valerie, that they will do a honest appraisal each quarter of the activity, and we have another library board that also will be reviewing that. And so if it's not a good fit, and there's not truly general fund money being put to the activity, that we really don't have a lot to lose to give it a try. And so I just want to put that on the record as to why, right? Give it a shot.
Can I respond to that? Oh, no, I can't.
Either shout out, no, you can't. I did it, though. We're on the board up here.
Yeah, take ownership, Mr. Mayor. I have a firm commitment to the notion of not looking a gift horse in the mouth, except to find out how many teeth there are. And my big concern coming into this was Valerie, whom I didn't know, and the question of what direction it was going to go. And I do agree with my constituent. I'm a little fuzzy on the plan. But she has impressed me. I've already been impressed with Sina. I think it's a heavy lift, however. I think you got a lot to do in 3 years, and so that it continues to be something this community can build on. But I'm big on economic development. I happen to sit on the Western Nevada Development District and the Northern Nevada Development Authority boards as a representative from this body. And I think workforce development is something that's very important. And if we can leverage this into that, as well as get some affordable housing around here, we will help this community a lot. That doesn't mean you should ignore the incubation or what Mr. Neighbors doesn't like to call business retention, but business development, let's call it. Yes, expansion. Minnesota has done that for 100 years, and they have a very vibrant economy because of it. So that's where I'd like to see us go in a smaller way. So that's why I'm seconding it. I think it's a good idea for the next 3 years.
As long as we're talking here, let me just say this, that, and John, I think you could probably appreciate this. I think economic development in general is fuzzy.
It's true.
I mean, I don't know, I've 9 years now, I've looked at economic development, even when I'm on the school board. And, it's difficult to say, it's difficult to show progress in economic development because it's got so many different things to it. As I tell, NNDA, and you guys, economic development, I guess, in a real sense means somebody's putting a shovel in the dirt in my yard, or, there's community yard. And until I see that, economic development hasn't done much for me. But I will say that, even though I think economic development is fuzzy, I mean, it's got a lot, you're always out there beating the bushes or doing something, or you're talking to somebody. It's an important function for a community to do. Now, we're making a decision here today. I know the Hoppin May Adams Foundation has done that through the business incubator. This, to me, bringing it into the library is kind of probably the next step in where the library, I think, should be going. And I'm sensitive to the ideas that not every library can do what we're doing here in Carson City. Not every library can do that. Not every library has the people, but the brain power and the bandwidth to do it. But I listened with interest the other night that there was a forum where Milton Chen, was a writer on education, spoke, and it was pretty interesting to hear what he had to say in terms of where we are in education in this world, between a link between your private education, your public education, and how libraries fit into that. And, I had misgivings about whether or not, the city should even be in economic development, because in a way it is fuzzy. But when I look at what the library has done to date, and when I look at what libraries can be in the future, I mean, in terms of delivering knowledge, in terms of delivering education to those who may not get it in the four walls of the school system or the school system, the library is primed to do that. And I'm always amazed that when I walk down to the library, I have a computer at home. I don't need to go down to the library and get and work on a computer. I mean, I've got pretty good Wi-Fi at home. But when you walk into the library, you'll see folks that maybe don't have the capability that I have. You see folks up there of all ages working on computers, pulling out books, doing things. And that's the activity, I think, spurs what I call the culture of entrepreneurship. And I'm a proponent of that, not just because I think it's a good sounding name, entrepreneurship, or a culture of entrepreneurship, but for me, it's a way of changing. It's a way of fostering critical thought in our community and in our young and all folks, because I don't think you have to be, anybody. You'll hear me say anybody can be an entrepreneur. It takes a change in thinking. It takes a little bit of a critical thinking. But it's an exciting way to look at the world. And our library, I think, through SENA and the library board, it has put their finger on where I think this world can be going in terms of the delivery of and expansion of knowledge. And I think, we're on the cusp of that. And so I'm willing to give this a try for the 3 years. And I sincerely hope it works well. I know the people who are here. I've seen Valerie work on the other things at Health and Human Services. I mean, if there's anybody who's a gun next to Sina, she's a gunner. I'll tell you that, man. She doesn't let grass grow under her feet. But so I'm going to vote for this, and I really want to vote for it because I think it's the right thing to do for our community. Even though, I may have misgivings about whether or not government should even be in these types of things, I think in terms of what the library delivers to our community and what it can do in the future, is well worth the risk of taking it on. And I want to thank the Adams Hub or the Hop May Adams Foundation for donating this gift. I mean, there were some times when the Adams Foundation took a bad rap, because what are we doing? We're trying to build a new library down here in the middle of town, and all we're doing is fostering the nugget and all things like that. But the Hop May Adams Foundation is putting $10 million in the middle of our community. $10 million in a building. It's a mixed-use development. It's state-of-the-art mixed-use development. One of the reasons why it's taken so long is it's got so many nice, intricate features to it. And, the city manager mentioned when we first hired him, he read the book about Greenville, about how development occurred in Greenville, where they were down in the dumps. And you really need businesses. You need some people with money to come in to your downtown to make things work. And for me, the Hop May Adams Foundation putting $10 million in here and giving $1 million, $1.2 million grant to the city, that's the type of development that we need in this community to make things happen. So, I want to thank you folks for the Hop May Adams Foundation. And for me, I'm going to vote yes and take the risk that the two ladies here, Sina and the library board and Valerie, I know you guys are not, if you're forward-thinking individuals, and that's what we need, forward-thinking individuals who are not afraid to say, we didn't make it, but who aren't afraid to take a leap at the same time. So, with my vote, I say go forward and do good things. Everybody in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, all right. Let's take up the next one we're on. Let's see, this one is, what do I have to do now?
3 ayes, 2
abstentions.
Oh,
302.
Okay. Everybody, you get that one? I always forget. Thanks for kicking me. Okay. All right. 3 ayes, 2 abstentions. All right. On 19 Bravo, let's take the corollary motion there. Do you want to do that, Lori? Okay.
Sure.
Mr. Mayor, you will have to take public comment on 19B.
On 19B, public comment.
Thought we opened and did
Anybody?
it. That's okay.
Thanks for reminding me on that, too. These days, you know what? Either I'm getting older, or the days are getting longer. Probably both.
Okay.
Okay, anybody? Public comment? All right, I didn't see any. All right. Let's see if we can try a motion.
Okay. I move to approve moving the business development manager position from under the city manager's office to the library, funded with revenue from the donation agreement in the special library services program for economic development in Carson City.
Second.
There's a motion and there's a second on the motion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no, and abstentions? 2. All right. We'll take a break after we do, can we do 20, do we think? Create the Business Incubator Fund, we probably got to do that. We're on track to do that here. So let's take up 20.
Mr. Mayor, can I just have a statement on that?
On the 28? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. So we'll take up 20A, and then after we do 20A, we'll take a break before we get on to the last one on the agenda in public comment. So go ahead.
Although I abstain from participating on the last 2 items that are relative to this because I'm currently under contract with the Hop May Adams Foundation to do design work on 308 North Curry, I have a substantial and continuing business relationship with the Hop May Adams Foundation. This item is a city procedural item establishing a fund account for accounting purposes for the items that have been approved. In this instance, a reasonable person in my position would not be materially affected by my relationship, and therefore I will participate in this matter.
Almost the same disclosure. Although I abstained from participating on the last 2 items because Bruce Robertson, a broker in my firm, has listings with 1 or more entities involved in those 2 items. This next item is a city procedural item establishing a fund account for accounting purposes for which the items that have already been approved without my participation. In this instance, a reasonable person in my position would not be materially affected by the relationship Bruce has with the entities, and therefore I will participate on this item.
Okay. Mr. Link, you want to take us on? I think this is something we probably have to do in order to make sure we have the right accountings on this, so.
Thank you. Jason Link, Chief Financial Officer. So this is the administrative matter that you just discussed, creating the fund and the accounting mechanism for the agreement that was just approved. And so with that, there's a resolution that would need to be adopted for that.
I just wanted to add on that, after thinking about the name of the fund a little bit more, that we decided to change the name to the Business Development Fund rather than just specific to an incubator.
Public comment on this issue? It's kind of a corollary to this administrative side of what we've been talking about here for about an hour, so. All right, board members, anybody? We okay with this?
Resolution number?
2018 R8.
Okay. I move to adopt resolution number 2018 R8, a resolution creating the Business Development Fund, a special revenue fund.
There's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none, all in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried. Okay. Let's take a break here. We'll be back in 10 minutes. All right, we're going to take up the next item. This is the final item before we get to public comment. This is on item 21. This is for possible action to appoint Nancy Paulson as the deputy city manager, as the interim city manager beginning June 3rd, 2018, and to approve an employment contract between the Carson City Board of Supervisors and Nancy Paulson. I'll bring this up because I mentioned it when we heard about the fact that our city manager, much to my chagrin, is not going to renew his contract. Marines, I thought, all right, I won't go down there. Okay. I believe it's the right thing to do to appoint our deputy city manager as the interim city manager through the end of the year, at least till, I know the contract says right after that, and see how things work out. Nancy has been with the city for a long time. She knows the ins and outs of all the money, most stuff, and in a sense, credits to our staff that, they're developing folks who can step in case somebody has to leave or somebody has to leave for one reason or another. And so, that's why I asked to have this brought before us. I see we got Melanie there. Melanie, you want to weigh in on this one?
I don't think I have anything to add, Mayor.
Oh.
Unless you have
Well, I did what you told me to do, right?
You did a great job. Thank you.
All right. So, board, I know I've looked at the contract. I know you guys you folks, so let's just take it up and see where we go. All right, Supervisor Bagwell.
So I'd like to look at section 10.7, the severance benefits. 10.72 specifically, item number 2. Sorry I didn't see this earlier, but I just discussed it with our DA. It technically needs a correction. A lump sum payment of the employee's COBRA health insurance benefits payments we need to add not more than or not to exceed, something of that nature. Because otherwise, or until employee secures other health insurance, could be years. We need to limit the exposure on that. So I think we just said we could add not more than to correct that. And then I had discussed with Nancy earlier that since this was only a 7-month interim, and then if it's future, we can do something different, that on number 3 there, we would change it to a 3-month severance, and it's only if she actually leaves the city, because if she goes back to her position, which we're offering her in the agreement anyway, so I'd like to change that to 3 months, and she agreed.
We're talking about 10.7.21?
Yeah, we're going to change it to 3 months.
1, not 3, though.
Well, it's in all 3 places. 1, 2, and 3 all say 6 months, 6 months. So I'm saying at 10.72, all of the 6s have to go to 3s. Because it's only a 7-month contract. And then we have to add on number 2, not more than, to be clearer in that sentence.
I guess I'm all right. See, I look at, this came out of the existing contract that we've got for Nick. And frankly, I don't, this is, it's interim, and so, if something happens here, she gets to go back to being deputy, and so none of this happens. So, but I thought, this is okay for me. I mean, I thought, if she stays on, and the board wants her to stay on, that this kind of is where I came out. But I don't mind doing, if Nancy's okay with that, it's fine with me, make it 3.
She's okay.
All right.
I asked her first.
All right.
I did.
All right. John?
And of course, if she stays on, we'd probably renegotiate.
We
for
do a
the next-
regular contract.
Right, so it'd be a new contract
This is just
anyway.
an interim. Yeah.
All right. Brad?
Yeah, I met with Nancy as well and discussed this. I'm wondering why we don't just eliminate this section for the same reasons. It's really not relevant in this case on an interim contract where you're going back to a previous position and we're going to enter into a new contract. So I don't know why we wouldn't just eliminate it. I don't see the difference between 3 months or 6 months.
As Lori said, though, if she left the city, that.
I wanted to I can live with it either way, but I wanted to, depending on what it is, she may decide not to go back to the deputy position. So that's the only time that this would be invoked, as if she didn't revert.
So during
No, not if Nancy leaves voluntarily, just like, I'm not going to renew, there's no severance.
Right.
It's
only if we terminate.
It's only if the board terminated her, which,
Well, we terminate her from this position, and then she still has the rights, though, to go back to the other one or not.
It's only for termination without cause.
From the interim position. She still would invoke the other section and go back to the deputy. Is that correct, the way I read this? She'd have the right to her old position?
Correct. The severance, section 10.7.1 and 10.7.2 is only triggered, those sections are only triggered by a termination without cause. Nothing else triggers those.
From this position?
From this interim city manager position.
So help me just to make sure we're not misunderstanding anything and we do right by Nancy and right by us. We can, without cause, month 5, we say, it's not a good fit, it's not working out. So we could say, we're going to terminate you from the interim city manager position without cause, and she would then invoke the other part, and I don't see in here where it says, if you take the old job back, you don't get any severance. This talks only about severing from this contract. Is that right?
That's correct.
I just want to put a clarity in, that's all, like you said.
I think,
Yeah.
well,
I could remove it.
I thought it was okay. Well, you said it first, now I'm thinking, what?
Remove it? Remove it?
I don't know. I don't know if you remove this. I think.
Go to the 3 months.
I think the best way to, just to solve the issues, I mean,
Stick with the 3
So long
months.
as- Put a
Okay.
3-month limit on that.
Nancy agreed to the 3 months,
Then
right?
let it go.
Okay.
And that would be, I think, we'll see where the vote goes here, but I think that would be 3 months.
If she doesn't go back to deputy,
Yeah, and if she goes back to deputy,
she gets nothing.
she's not going to get any of these.
Right, you get nothing if you go back. Right. She just keeps on like she is today. Right, okay. You okay with that?
I think that's all right. I mean, yeah. You okay with that, Mr. DA, I think?
I am.
All right. Brad? No?
I'm outvoted, so it doesn't matter.
Nobody is indispensable. Nobody is not, doesn't have a vote, so,
Oh, you've disappointed me. I didn't know I wasn't.
okay. All right. Any other questions or
Yes.
concerns?
Yes.
Yep.
Since our public representative is still in the room, I think for our citizenry, I need to ask the question, can somebody enlighten me as to why the figure in the contract is at an annual rate of 177? Is that there a reason for that? Because it has to go up, obviously, as it has in the past when we had an interim, but I'd like to know how we arrived at that.
Melanie, you want to weigh in on that one? Or Nick, either one?
10%
It's 10%.
10% differential. She had it in the packet.
I know, I saw it. I wanted to know why it's in the, how we arrived at that, exactly.
So the unclassified resolution that Nancy is currently under, the position as deputy city manager, allows for a 10% increase when you're in an acting capacity.
I understand that. I just want our public to understand that. Thank you.
If I could, just for the record as well, I asked for the base salary figures for our surrounding counties for county manager, and to the south, Douglas County would be $172,000, Sparks $197,600, Washoe County $242,757, City of Reno $200,000, and those are all the northern Nevada salary ranges. So at 177, we're above everybody, but Douglas, we don't have Lyon County on here, but I suspect that they're considerably less.
Well, we can always charge the outgoing city manager the cost differential.
Maybe he can donate.
Okay, all right. All right, public comment on this issue. Anybody want to weigh in? I don't see anybody in the room. Okay, let's try a motion. Supervisor Bagwell, excuse me, go.
Sorry. I move to appoint Nancy Paulson, Deputy City Manager, as the interim city manager beginning June 3rd, 2018, and to improve the employment contract between the Carson City Board of Supervisors and Nancy Paulson with the corrections or amendments to Section 10.72 to replace the 6 months with 3 months, and to add on number 2, health insurance benefit payments for not more than 3 months.
And on number 2, everybody's clear, this is Section 17.
10.7.2.
Right, okay, got it. All right, so it's clear. All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I seconded it.
Motion and a second. On the motion, discussion?
Yes.
Discussion's in order.
Just want to put on the record that I do support Nancy being appointed to the city manager. I think you're going to do a great job. We've had extensive conversations about this, and I am going to vote for this, but I do want to be on the record as stating that my preference would have been to get my changes. I'm just going to be a sore loser on this one.
You're
It's okay.
entitled. We're all sore sometimes each day. She wanted to eliminate the section.
Well, now you get to join me. I got whacked this morning.
That's what I said. Join in.
You got me whacked around, now you get whacked around,
I got it
man.
last time. We're all in it together.
All right, all right. Anybody else? Let's see here. On the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried. Welcome, Nancy. Start when the Marine leaves.
Thank you very much. And it just popped into my mind that I've almost survived 2 Nicks. That's a shout out to Nick Providenti, who I know is watching right now. And
The old guy.
the old Nick. And I just want to thank the board and, Nick for giving me this opportunity. And, I'm just really excited to serve the city in the new capacity. Thank you.
Well, somebody mentioned to me in passing, is Nancy ready for this job or something like that? And I said, Nancy's the only CPA I know that wakes up in the middle of the night thinking about the Davis-Bacon Act.
I don't think she's the only one.
I heard that from Nancy. Talk about work. I don't know what your husband thinks, but if you talk about Davis-Bacon in the middle of the night, you're in trouble. But all right. Nancy, thank you. All right. We're ready to go to the last part here then? All right, public comment. Now we're on public comment.
I'm not quite sure I want to go ahead and talk now because apparently you guys are doing stand-up at the Chuckle Hut here about 4 hours later.
You just said we had to have fun.
For the record, my name is Carl Edward Needhammer, and before I begin with the issue, and I will keep it brief because it's been a long day for all of us, first I'd like to go ahead and thank this board for its work on the opioid crises. Hitchhike on that, I would gently remind the board and the rest of the people watching this that the Veteran Suicide Awareness Walk will be this Saturday. We do this every year, and enough.
Starts at Bullies and goes to the college.
Right, and you walk up there, and you walk back, or I can drive you up there and then drive you back, depending on your point of view. The other thing is, too, I'd like to say to Mr. Morano, you've been a great city manager. It's been a pleasure to know you. And I'm quite sure that your protege here, based on the Davis-Bacon Act, apparently, that she will be an asset. It's good to see my friend Sue Merriweather. In full disclosure, the issue I'm presenting to this board, I have discussed with Supervisor Bonkowski, Supervisor John Barrett, along with our district attorney, Jason Woodbury, and also briefly with Mayor Bob Kroll. As I look upon this, I have 5 representatives here that I voted for. You're the people that I come to with an issue. But I think the problem is now there is a board or a commission, whatever you want to call it, called the Charter Review Committee, who I believe have gone way beyond their ability. They are now making legislative issues as opposed to advising and assisting the board. And this comes down to the issue, once again, of ward voting. I turned 70 in March. I don't think my memory is gone so far as to believe that the issue of ward voting was decided by the people of Carson City. And it was voted against ward voting in overwhelming numbers. Last night, I watched the Charter Review Committee bring this issue up again. That is a legislative issue. I looked over the last 4 or 5 meetings of this Board of Supervisors. I did not see a coalition of people coming up before the legislative branch, the executive branch, stating that we needed ward voting again. So I was somewhat amazed when that issue was brought up again. The meeting lasted 28 minutes and 14 seconds. I timed it. There was one person at the Charter Review Committee, and it was about mandatory trash pickup. Nobody was there talking about ward voting. An individual, and I'm quite sure that he had honorable intentions, but this is the result of what I thought was a despicable piece of legislation called AB 312, in which the state representative can appoint somebody to the Charter Review Committee. Prior to that, you had authority over that. They were publicly vetted. We knew who they were. Then all of a sudden, the state, I guess under the Dillon rule, could appoint somebody. I am confused. Are they a co-equal branch of government? Are they functioning as a co-equal branch of government? Or have certain members on that board become so impressed with their own self-importance that they think they're elected officials? And they're not. I didn't vote for any one of them. So, and I know you cannot entertain this motion, nor can you vote on it today, and I appreciate the board's time. I did discuss with Mr. Woodbury as to whether or not this board could direct him, or he's basically the people's attorney. I think it's about time that we have an in-depth legal analysis as to what the Charter Review Committee can do, what the authority is from those individual members, and who do I answer to? Because this is an end around. You're the legislative board. I don't remember anybody coming up here, a whole coalition, like I said, of people, 150 people coming into this board and saying we need to have ward voting. That issue has already been decided. And like I said, it's overwhelming. I have no idea as to why it's being brought up by the Charter Review Committee. I don't know if they're working ultra vires above their mission statement. And their mission statement is a little vague. There's a gray area there. So, the reason I brought this up and waited around is because I think there should be a clear definition as to exactly what they can do and what they can't do. The issue of ward voting is a legislative issue. It's not an issue for an advisory board to even be brought up. And the same fallacious arguments about ward voting was brought up again last night, except when it came to the mayor. Apparently, anybody who's running for mayor, they get to run citywide. But the argument for ward voting was it doesn't cost the person it costs them too much money to run citywide when they should be working in their vote or just running in their ward. That goes against everything I was ever taught in 8th grade civics. 2 more points. As a young reporter back in Kansas City, at the age of 24, where ward voting is in Kansas City, there was an issue that was going to confront everybody in that city. This is Kansas City, Kansas. So I was sent out to go ahead and get comments, and the guy looked at me, and I'll clean this up for you. I don't have to talk to you because if you don't live in my effing ward, I don't have to talk to you or to anybody else. Ward voting is a form of gerrymandering. Not in the classical sense in which you are trying to go ahead and gerrymander a district for votes, but it can be used as a form of economic gerrymandering. Ward 4. Now let me be very, very clear on this. Having worked in ward voting, please, this is the worst thing we want in Carson City. Because it will now go ahead and divide this city into even more polarization that's already gone on to the national body politic. We don't need word voting. We've said we don't word voting. And again, I haven't got an answer as to why that was brought up by the Charter Review Committee. So in closing, as I discussed with Mr. Woodbury, and you can direct him or choose not to direct him, and you don't have to make that issue today because that would require a vote. But at least I'm asking as a citizen to at least put it on the agenda to direct Mr. Woodbury. And Jason, I know you're overworked. But I think there has to be a definition as to their authority and as to whether or not your authority supersedes them. If there's any other questions, you can ask me. But I'm quite sure there won't be because you guys want to get out of here just as fast as I do.
I appreciate your consideration there. I didn't mean to say it like
What, on the issue or getting out of here?
I won't discriminate there. All right. Anything else, Carl?
No, I just think that there needs to be I think there needs to be a clean-cut line as to who I answer to. Do I answer to the Charter Review Committee or do I answer to you? That's the only thing I'm doing because they've gone way, way beyond their ability. To me, the process is backwards. If you wanted to go ahead and bring up the issue of ward voting, then you would direct the Charter Review Committee to do a study to see as to whether or not it is viable. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. At least that's the way I think the system should work. It's not the other way around. They don't come up with their legislative agenda or a political agenda and then, as a fait accompli, hand it to the board. They're unelected. And if they're unelected, I don't have to answer to anybody, and I don't know why they're trying to go ahead and pass bills. And the same arguments that were used to go ahead and defeat it the first time were the same arguments that were brought up last night. What's changed? Last thing I will say, you can go ahead and wrap yourself up in the Constitution, and you can go ahead and wrap yourself up in the Declaration of Independence, and you can go ahead and climb up the walls, wrap yourself up in the flag and say, we the people. Well, we the people here in Carson City have already decided on ward voting. Have yourself a good night.
All right. Very good.
Can I leave?
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
I've got the sheriff on the way.
You do? Nick, don't say that.
All right. Any other public comment?
Yes.
Public comment. Go.
Yeah, I do have just a brief additional public comment. I did want to respond to the mayor's comments a little earlier this afternoon about economic development and a shovel in my yard. And what I would say is that economic development is a lot like an iceberg. The majority you can't see. You only see a very small portion of it, the tip just sticking out of the water, but the most important part is what's under the water, and that's the way economic development works. You'll never hear about it, you'll never see it, but that's where the drivers are. So the shovel in the yard where you actually see a project go vertical, that is years down the road at the very end and the least important part of the process. So anyway, I just wanted to put that on the record.
Consider me useless.
I don't consider you useless, Mr. Mayor, because I tend to agree with both of you again. I agreed with both of you before. Economic development is important, but it is hard to see, and you need good people. And I've seen a lot of economic developers I wouldn't hire. I'll repeat that.
And speaking of economic development and the arts as an economic driver, at 5:30 tonight is the opening of True Grit up at the Bristlecone Room at WNC.
Where's the Bristlecone?
It's in the main building upstairs. Yes.
Those are some cool cards. I have seen the car full of the card art being put in the car and delivered up there. You guys really need to go see it. It's phenomenal. Really
Okay,
fun.
any other public comment? Any other comment? It's within the confines of the open meeting law? I don't hear any. Are we ready to adjourn?
Oh, yes.
All right, unless there's objection, we're adjourned until the next regular scheduled meeting.